In current college football terms, when Jimbo Fisher was hired by A&M for the monstrous contract, and then, of course, they extended it, he, Dabo Sweeney, Urban Meyer, and Nick Saban were the only active coaches in college football who held at least one national championship. Of course, Saban's got a chunk. Dabo has 2. Urban had 3. And then and Jimbo had 1 in 2013. Urban's gone. He's now back in broadcasting until he gets the itch.
He'll be back.
But Mac Brown, who was at the time inactive, is now back. So it made me think of this. If you think about all the coaches in 331, is that right, of FBS schools, Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney, Kirby Smart now, Mac Brown, and Jimbo. 5 coaches among America, all the 131 schools, and we know that only about 15 or 20 are the ones that usually rotate winning national titles. Does that seem like a very small amount, or is that always about the standard currently coaching in college football that have won a national title?
I think,
and I don't know the answer. It's just a discussion piece.
Just kind of going back and looking without having to look at, who overlapped and when was coaching when. I think that's probably about, I mean, you're not going to get a number much bigger than maybe 6 or 7, I would think, active at once. But college football has always been about, narrowing it down to the very last 2 without getting as many people involved until we have this expanded playoff. So it's always been really hard to get to that point. So I think.
When did Phil, I'm going to go back to, let's go before Oklahoma and Bob Stoops, the second year there, he won a national title. Let's just go to the decade before that. Garrett, do you have the 90 to 99 or whatever? All right, here are the teams and coaches at that time. Stoops won his first. Bowden, of course, had won twice. Osborne had won 3 times. Lloyd Carr, Phil Fulmer, Steve Spurrier, Gene Stallings was retired. Don James, Dennis Erickson, Bill McCartney, who then left soon after that, and Bobby Ross. I don't know how many of them were active by the end of the decade, but I think there was a pretty nice chunk.
Yeah, Ross went to the Lions after that.
Put that back up there,
Chargers.
please.
Yeah, Ross went to the Lions and the Chargers in the NFL after that. I don't know how long Bill McCartney stayed, but yeah, that's probably the last of that. Right there.
All right, so, and here's Eric. It's that way in every endeavor. Success produces multiplicative advantages. And Dennis has a great point. Compare that to basketball, which we will try to do. Paxton said that's about right. I think that's about right. I didn't know. So let's go to the next decade, 2001 to 2010. Chiswick was there a short time and gone. Saban, there he is. Meyer, Miles, who really was with LSU after that, was there for a while, and then
he was active until a couple years ago.
Yeah, so. And then he took over at Kansas, which you wonder how many of these guys that are playing and winning right now for Lance Leipold were a part of him, including the quarterback. Pete Carroll, there's Saban again, Jim Tressel, who of course eventually that ended, and then Larry Coker, who. How long was he at Miami?
He went on to UTSA, remember?
Yeah, I know. Was there a gap there?
He wasn't at Miami very much longer because shortly after that is when the scandal hit. And
all right, so that's another. Now let's go to the current decade. Look at the red. These are all coaches who are active, who have won a national title, and Saban, Dabo, Kirby Smart, and then Jimbo Fisher, with Urban and Ed Orgeron no longer in college football.
Well, I mean, this one's pretty simple. I think there's a lot more red because it's recent.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And half of them are the same guy. So, that makes it look a lot better when, it's all recent guys, in the last 10 years. And, 6 of those or 5 of those or whatever that was were Nick Saban alone. So, I mean, it's, time passes and guys fall to the wayside. But I guess you got Mac Brown back a couple years ago once he decided to come out of retirement. But, I mean, Saban's been running the game. And then you've had your, couple shots at Dabo. And you've had now Kirby Smart and, then the spotty, Jimbo. And who else am I missing there?
You got Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Mac Brown.
There we go. There's the graphic. Orgeron,
Orgeron's gone. So you have Kirby Smart, Saban, Sweeney.
I was thinking of
Jimbo Fisher and Mac Brown are the 5 who are active because Mac's not on there. He was retired when Jimbo was higher.
Well, it's been a long time for Mac, and it's really starting to feel like a long time, even though it's half that time for Jimbo. But it's really starting to feel like a long time. And, you know, I think what you're seeing there, that board, Nick Saban is the reason we need a 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
Nick Saban's the reason. And Alabama has earned every bit of what they got. I'm not trying to knock it, but we need to, you know, throw up some more defenses instead of just going, oh, well, he's so good. Well, if you give them more chances to lose, the odds are that they will lose more often. Maybe not a whole lot, but more.
Yeah, I don't think you can Saban-proof anything, but I do think it serves to. I mean, let's face it. The first mistress that the playoff serves is the money. Yeah. I mean, that's really what this is about. It all goes back to money. Money. They see how much money they can make with more teams and more games and more TV broadcasts and all of that. I mean, that's ultimately why anything is happening, is because of money. But yeah, I do think there's some of that, just this Saban fatigue of just, it's Alabama again. Great. What one of 3 teams are they playing this year? You know, and it's the same old thing. And, you know, you would be. And I didn't get tired of Jordan and the Bulls, but I mean, at this point, like, he's even more than that. Like, I mean, they won 6 titles, and he's right there and still going. And it's just like, come on, man, already. Let's move on to the Kobe era, and let's move on to the LeBron era, and it's just, he's still there. It's like if MJ just never retired and kept, you know, playing at a high level. But yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of, in some roundabout way, or I guess kind of direct way, usher in maybe some new faces and some new blood. And I just hope that keeps the blood pumping and flowing for the college football fan out there who, yeah, probably does get a little tired of seeing just the feeling like the season's already, the end result's already known before you even start. What fun is there in that? And, you know, this at least gives you the possibility of, okay, well, maybe my team can make a playoff and just have a shot at so-and-so, or play a team they've never played before, or just be able to go toe-to-toe with a top 5 team. And so that's fun. That's different. There's no harm in it. People that are like, oh, well, this is going to be a blowout. Like, I mean, who cares? I think the argument against it's really absurd, and we've gone over that. So, it's to shake things up, but I don't know how much the end result will actually be shaken up, and it'll probably still be, when all is said and done,
how much
Saban or Sweeney or, you know, Kirby Smart that are, you know, sitting there at the end holding the trophy.
But could this then open up, and somebody says, does this open up a chance for Mike Gundy or someone else? And it does, because at least they have a chance, and it's not just you're relegated to this specific bowl game.
And the comparison I'll give you to Saban proofing something, which I know is like, it's going to be hard because he's that far ahead of the game and he's always adapting and changing.
But you know, I will say too, like, they're expanding the playoff, and like, he's not going to coach another 10 years.
No.
Like, I mean, they also have other things in mind, obviously, you know, with the playoff.
But it does remind me of the Masters did what to their course after Tiger was owning it? They Tiger-proofed it. Did they Mickelson-proof it? No. I mean, Mickelson was kind of his own.
Watson-proof it?
Yeah, no. But Mickelson was kind of his own Mickelson-proof there for a little while. But they never Mickelson-proofed it. They never Nicklaus-proofed it, did they?
No.
Arnie-proofed it? No. They Tiger-proofed it, and we can get into the bigger reasons of that later on. But they Tiger-proofed it. They needed Saban-proof this thing a little bit the best they could. And look, they couldn't even. They could Tiger-proof it to a point, but eventually he got it again.
Yeah, they got a little bit nervous about one. But here's the thing, that it just blew my mind. I'm just reading an article about Jimbo Fisher from Andy Staples about how he's got all the time he wants, no matter how maybe grumpy people are or how much we want to ask what the hell's going on with the offense, whatever. But really, there just aren't many people. Now, a lot of you on the chat room, and this is why you are brilliant. Think about then, add that, and say how many coaches in college basketball, men's college basketball, are active and have won a national title.
Well, it's like 6
because
or 7,
there's no
right?
John Wooden in today's America, right? I would think that number maybe, off the top of my head, maybe it's 8 to 10.
No, Dennis already did it for us.
Okay.
Dennis Haiti, Scott Drew, Tony Bennett, Bill Self, John Calipari, Rick Pitino, and Jim Boeheim.
That's 6.
Oh, same. It's basically the same.
Yeah. And they have 300 in some schools, and 69 get in.
The Saban of college basketball just retired.
Yes, that's exactly right. And Krzyzewski,
Coach K
right.
just retired.
Dennis, thank you very much.
Well, I may say the Saban, but like,
I don't know about Saban, but
the dude with the multiple, like all these other guys. Look, Scott Drew has 1, Tony Bennett has 1, Bill Self has 2, Calipari has 1, Pitino has 2. right? One at Kentucky, one at Louisville,
Yeah.
and Boeheim has one because of Carmelo Anthony. But so it's hard. It's hard to win multiple national titles. And look, the sport where it's all these coaches are active, they only have one except for a couple of them, and nobody has a ton anymore. Guess what they do every year? They play a tournament, right?
Yeah, they do. John Voss, by the way, welcome. John's been a part of this before. Go Big Orange. We from Tennessee salute Sikkim 365. Excellent program. Thank you, John, for being a part of what we do. And thanks for all of you. I just thought that'd be a little bit of a different topic today. We opened up talking about, maybe college football, the games we've seen so
Tom
far.
Izzo.
All right. And I bet before it's all said and done, there's probably somebody else we've forgotten. But again, we're not talking Final Fours, but winning the entire national championship. So appreciate you, all of you, for participating. Nick Marks jumps in. Thank you, Nick, as well, for being a part of the show. So let's put those graphics up one more time just to kind of put them up. This is the 90s up to 2000. You see the same, I don't know how long Fulmer was there after that. Bowden coached until, 11 or 12?
I think 09.
Osborne, he was gone after the third national title in 97. Stallings retired. All right, Don James retired. Dennis Erickson went to the NFL. Then you have someone like a Gene Chizik. Well, do you have one of those in college football? A guy that was like a quick hit that really never had a great...
Gene Chizik.
I'm talking about outside of a Gene. Do you have that now in college football where somebody, Ed Orgeron?
Ed Orgeron is Gene Chizik. Because 3 years later, Auburn was back in the national championship game, and he wasn't there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's just some graphics. And then you see, of course, as Craig said, the reason there's a bunch of red, and Orgeron would still be there if it wasn't for him just kind of everything falling apart, and Urban Meyer probably will be back at some point. He can't help himself. And that's fine. He's a hell of a coach. It's just a matter of you want to deal with all the drama with that. Speaking of coaches, today, Wisconsin